And this is Marjorie, and I am here with David, who is the enrollment manager at ATBS, and he has agreed graciously to answer some of my questions today about S corporation or filing as an S corp on my tax returns. I was basically at work and at the office and heard some other drivers talking about the S corp, and it sounded like it could be beneficial. So I guess I do have a few questions, seeing as I am not a tax expert, and hence I love having ATBS around to help me with this. So I guess my first question is, what would be obviously some of the benefits of filing as an S corp?
Sure. So some of the benefits of filing as an S corp primarily are going to revolve around pay less in taxes. So essentially speaking, I'm going to kind of keep this simple. So right now, Marjorie, with your current business structure, your net income before tax is all subject to self-employment tax, which is also known as Social Security and Medicare taxes. So with filing your taxes as an S corp, you're able to cut that about in half. So rather than paying 100% Social Security Medicare on that net income before tax, you're only paying it on a certain amount that you pay yourself as a reasonable salary. So it's typically done through W-2 wages as a payroll. And that's really the main reason why most individuals elect to be taxed as an S corp.
Okay, so essentially you're saying I'd be paying or deciding to pay myself a wage. Is that correct?
Correct. So it's a reasonable salary. So we, as your tax and accounting firm, cannot dictate what that should look like. We can give you some guidance around what other clients do. And that's typically about half of your net income before tax. So let's just kind of use some basic figures here so I can give you an idea. So if you made $80,000 net income before tax, something that would kind of allow you to fly under the radar of the IRS is you pay yourself about 40,000 of that on a W-2. So you essentially are not only the owner of your company, but you're also the driver. So like you have two roles, you're the owner and the employee. And rather than paying Social Security and Medicare self-employment tax on that entire 80, you would only be paying it on about 40.
Okay, that makes sense. Do you think there would be anything we would have to take into account that I'm a team driver because my husband and I are both in the truck and both owners?
Sure, that's a great question. So in your case, and let me just kind of repeat what I heard, you're team drivers and you're both owners. Yeah, so that's great. You both have an investment in the company. You're both on, business owners. You're both team driving. So essentially, in this case, we would just have to duplicate that. So you would both be on W-2 wages with a reasonable salary. And let me backtrack a bit as well. So while half of the net income is typically like going to allow you to fly under the radar and still see significant tax savings, we do have some clients that pay themselves a reasonable salary based on what they find drivers, like a company driver, making in their area where they live in.
Okay, that makes sense. Another question I had was someone was mentioning something about a pass-through entity. Does that apply to an S corp, and what is that?
Sure. So an LLC taxed as an S corp is a pass-through entity. And really what that means at the end of the day in simple terms is that all of the profit or the loss trickles down to the business owner at the end of the day. So there'll be some things done on the business side, such as payroll, the W-2 wages we were discussing, and then whatever profit or loss is left trickles down to you, the taxpayer. And really, that's all that means. It's a pass-through entity. Whatever's left, whether positive or negative, trickles down to the business owner.
Okay. As far as the W-2, how does that work? Does ATBS help me with that?
Absolutely. Yeah, we have a one-stop shop here for you. So right now you're in our Rumble Strip Professional, which is our most popular package, and it fits the bill for most individuals. An LLC tax as an S corp does require a lot more work on both ends. Um, so similar to what we're doing now, we have an unlimited bookkeeping and accounting solution, which takes care of things like your profit and loss statements, your profit plans. Um, but in addition, we would also have to do what's called double entry accounting. And this would involve producing balance sheets for your business. As you mentioned, payroll is required. We do have payroll service here as well. Different clients have different needs. So whatever frequency you want to pay yourself in is definitely appropriate for us. Most individuals, similar to how they get paid now, set themselves up on a weekly payroll. But we can do biweekly or monthly, whatever works best for you. And that would take care of the payroll tax wages, and then you would still have some quarterly tax wages as well. We would cover both tax returns at the end of the year. There's 2 tax returns as well. So you would have the corporate return, which is called an 1120S, plus your 1040, which is what we file for you now. And then to wrap everything up, you would still have a person you work with, and this would be your enterprise accountant, which would either be a CPA or an enrolled agent. No long-term contracts, no hidden fees. It's still pay-as-you-go service.
Okay. Another question I have is, would I need to do anything differently that I'm doing in the app as far as submitting like receipts and settlement sheets and invoices for billing? Is there anything additional I need to do, or just keep doing what I'm doing?
So you would more likely continue to do what you're doing now. We would still want to see all of those items there on a regular basis. The more frequently, the better. But honestly, Marjorie, like looking over your account, the first thing we would want to do to kick this off is to help you set up an LLC. Is that something you have set up already, or no?
I don't have an LLC set up at this time.
Okay. So you guys are running as sole proprietors, which is actually one of the best ways to get started. And some individuals stay in that state throughout the life of their, truck driving owner operator career. But in order to capitalize on the tax savings, we would have to set up an LLC in the state that you reside in. We would add that S corp classification. We could take care of that for you in-house. We do have a service at a cost that helps individuals get their LLC set up the right way, specifically for trucking. So we would start there. Once that is set up, then you would want to open up a business bank account at the institution of your choice. Once those 2 things are in place, then the next thing would be to set up the payroll, which we would do in-house as well. But to backtrack a bit, that'd be a good place to start. But the additional work you would have to consider is, and these are minutes, Marjorie, just like with anything, right? Especially how you run and utilize ATBS at the moment. Once you build a habit, the habit becomes routine. So I'm talking about minutes of your time a month, but once a month, you would want to send us the business bank account, the statement. And then you would also need to check in with your enterprise accountant a bit more frequently to run payroll. So some individuals decide to do like a salary. So they say, hey, every Friday, like clockwork, I want to be paid X amount of dollars. But you know as well as I do, never is this week the same as last week, right? So depending on load choices and whether it's home time or you know more about this than I do, but going back to that, never is this week the same as last week. Some of our client salaries change week to week, just like their pay on the business side does. So really altogether, I mean, you're talking about combined 5 to 10 minutes more of your time a month. But with the great client like you who utilizes ATBS, with all of its benefits, it's not going to add too much more work on your end.
Okay. And then I do have another question I thought of.
Yeah.
Because we own a truck, and right now we have that truck parked. We're not really using it. It's just parked right now because we decided to lease another truck and get that one under our belt. So we have, I apologize. So we have another truck that we're leasing at this time. Is there really any significant difference that filing as an S corp would be between just being a straight up owner operator versus lease purchase that you're aware of?
Yes, absolutely. So it does have an impact, which is a great point that you're bringing up. So you have the truck that you own that is parked, and then you recently leased a new truck. So, when you're leasing a truck, the payments are fully tax deductible. But since we have less ownership stake in the equipment, it's not depreciable like a truck that you would own. So that is an important factor. I'll give you something to compare this to. Like, let's say it was reversed, that you had a truck that you lease purchased and you completed the lease and it was parked, and then you financed a new truck. Let's say you put 30 grand down and the purchase price was 170,000. That's going to have more of an impact or take a bigger bite out of your taxable income for that year. So it might be better to wait till some of that depreciation wears out, as far as like year to year, depending how you depreciate the asset, because typically that takes a bigger chunk out of your tax liability. But yeah, with the lease purchase, as I mentioned, it is still fully tax deductible, but it doesn't have as big of an impact as if you were to be financing the truck. So that being said, I would feel like in your particular case, it would still make some sense to move your business over to being taxed as an S corp.
Okay. And then I think my final question is, are there any like significant drawbacks I should be aware of that we haven't talked about?
Significant drawbacks. So I always like to really emphasize with clients the amount of work this is going to be with them. That could be a drawback for some. Oftentimes nowadays, one of the biggest things that we see on the enrollment team when working with new clients is we have like a new lease purchase operator, someone who's never owned a business, coming from the company side of the industry, jump into it, which is great. But they get their LLC set up through a company that's not familiar with trucking, or a CPA who honestly doesn't know the industry either. And most companies nowadays charge more to set up an LLC tax as an S corp compared to just like a basic LLC. So when someone starts off with not knowing that they have all these extra things to do, that could be a significant drawback. So really, it's up to us here at ATBS. We take pride in taking the time with our clients to really let them know what they're signing up for. The additional costs, for example, the double entry bookkeeping and accounting, that's more labor on our end. The payroll, both tax returns. Plus you're working directly with someone with a bit more qualifications. Those things all cost money. And as I tell clients, saving money on taxes is great, but it doesn't automatically happen simply by being an S corp. But again, going back to what I was saying, someone of your caliber who utilizes all the benefits of ATBS isn't going to see too many drawbacks with this move, outside of if you're not going to have any significant life changes in the next 3 to 5 years, which we can't predict the future, Marjorie. But if you're not planning to leave the industry, purchasing or financing a truck in the next year to two, and yeah, those are really the major things that we look at. Because the drawback is, if you do those things, obviously there's probably not going to be much tax savings, which is kind of the whole purpose behind this move. me just kind of give you a couple more other pointers without getting into specifics. Right now towards we're in Q4 of 2023. This is the perfect time to be considering this for the upcoming tax year 2024. It does take some time to get all of these pieces moving, especially with you guys being on the road, getting that bank account set up at the institution of your choice, things like that. But just to kind of give you an idea and something you can kind of take back and think over as well is starting out with the LLC setup. That typically takes, just to give us some wiggle room on both ends, 2 to 3 weeks. And then you have you setting up the business bank account. Payroll, depending on the state, can take anywhere between 2 to 6 weeks to be finalized. So this is really the perfect time to get this done. Some other pointers that we look for here at ATBS is sometimes individuals will have a great year, where they've made enough money to validate moving over to an S corp. Which, by the way, the break-even point in the trucking industry for to make sense for an S corp to save money on taxes is right around like 60 to 65,000. We actually set that benchmark a little bit higher, more like towards like 70 to 80,000 net after all expenses, simply because it's more work, it's more costly in a sense. If you're just breaking even, that doesn't typically do it for a lot of people out there. But in addition to the current year looking good, we also want to look at least one tax year filed of income like over 80,000 net, a good current year, and then again, those factors like not making any significant life changes. And this is more, I like to say, a long-term saving strategy. So you're going to see significant saving, in 3 to 5 years. And that's another great part about being in our enterprise, our Rumble Strip enterprise services, is you can then start doing some tax planning, kind of start looking ahead towards retirement. Like, how can you use these additional $2,000 to $3,000 a year to start putting into self-employed retirement planning, kind of not double dip in a sense, but get a bigger bang for your buck with that tax savings. But yeah, long term, this would look like it could save you and your business about $2,000 to $3,000 in taxes every year.
That's really great. Because I've been thinking a lot, like you said. I mean, I'm to that age. I need to be really focusing on retirement and, maybe trying to get some good investments going. But I just think even just that extra savings, if I invested it and get some returns on it, I mean, you could really grow that. So I think it's a pretty big deal. So thank you very much. I appreciate it. And I appreciate your time.
Thanks, Marjorie.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.